There's a new entire biome on the map, but this new area has actually made the entire map completely larger thanks to Boop who posted this. But this new addition and new size to the map has increased the chests by around 38%. This means that Oathbound chests are actually no longer in the game, so the old medieval biome up to the northwest of the map has been nerfed pretty massively actually. This place always had minimal metal, but it had the advantage because you had those Oathbound chests which could give you a little bit more loot. Now with those gone, that side of the map is significantly weaker. So I predict that most of the best teams are probably going to land in this new biome. There's also a bunch of guaranteed Kinetic Blade spawns that are in this area. In particular, if you land at Kinjutsu Crossing, as there's 10 spawns here. If you played this season at all, you'll know that the Kinetic Blade is basically a guaranteed take. You have to have it in your inventory because it is some insane mobility. Now the right-click dash of this will take you 25 meters, and you're always going to travel in the direction of your crosshair once the animation's finished. So if you start out one way and then turn your crosshair, you'll go the direction that you're facing. Now this dash will break builds, but it won't make you go through them. This means that if you're actually trying to travel in endgame, you need to choose your crosshair placement very carefully. However, I did find an exploit. For some reason, if you're at 20 to 22, usually 21, 22 is the best, you'll actually phase strike through the wall of the other player, even if they're holding it like they are here. The problem, of course, is the fact that this does have a delay afterwards, and there's no way to cancel that out from what I've found so far. So you're basically just probably going to get one pumped, but use this to your own discretion. If you hit into a player while doing this, it'll do 60 damage. However, after you've done the swing, there's a lot of delay. This is much better as a mobility item than it really is as a weapon, and that's particularly true when you combine it with the aerialist reality augment, as you can just fly directly up into the sky and then redeploy and just glide to your destination. The loot pool overall and what weapons you're going to want to take are pretty simple, I would say. There's 3 different types of shotguns. There's the Havoc pump shotgun, the combat, and then the Maven, which is just the same as last time. It's basically the tactical shotgun. So don't take the combat ever. It's worse in basically every way than the Havoc and the Maven, and the Havoc is absolutely insane. Now I tested blue up till mythic. Yes, there is mythics. Damage and body, it goes from 120 up to 144, and the headshot damage goes up from 180. You can see in purple 185, gold is 190, and then the mythic does 250. Not 200 damage, 250 headshot damage. That is absolutely insane. We'll come back to how to get that and strategies to get that later on in the video. But yeah, if you get one of those mythic Havoc shotguns, you are chilling. But outside of that, gold does 190 headshot and a lot of body shot damage as well. The ARs, there's 2 main ARs this season, which is the Havoc suppressed assault rifle, which has an incredibly slow pullout rate. But the one thing that's cool about this is the hip fire accuracy is also extremely good. Overall, for competitive, I think most players are just still going to take the red eye. And even just for W keying, it's not worth taking the suppressed because ultimately the pullout time is so slow that it's not even a good switch weapon in box. In your inventory, you'll also want the Kinetic Blade as it's incredibly powerful, and then mainly just 2 heals. And one of the heals that you can have is now the new increased Slurp Juice. So previously the Slurp Juice would just heal you up 75 HP total. Now it's gone up to legendary and it does 240 HP total. So every half second it will heal 3 HP and 3 shield at the same time. Given it only takes 2 seconds to pop, I did a quick test in one of the 10 tick zones, so in competitive one of the final moving zones that you have. And this actually allows you, if you pop it while you're still 100 HP, to stay alive for 22 seconds in the zone without popping any other additional heals. So if you have a med mist, or if you have some chug splashes, or even another Slurp Juice that you can pop, you can stay inside of zone for so long. So the heal offs this season, if you manage to make it there, if that's going to be part of the meta, will be incredibly reliant on having Slurp Juice. This is particularly true because the last moving zones and stacked scrims seem to have 20 people alive, so I'm sure there'll be a lot of heal offs. In terms of which reality augments you want to choose, I'm going to do an entire video on that coming up because there's still a lot of little intricacies in these, but one that I think is really important is munition slide. It gives you around 2 to 5 assault rifle every second while you're sliding. It's incredibly busted. So what this means is basically everyone has infinite assault rifle ammo and we're able to spray endlessly and waste everyone's materials within the game. Now I think this is one of the things in the game that definitely needs a nerf or taken out of competitive right now, but if it stays in, you have to choose this. If it ends up getting balanced in some way, this could be great for teams that land in split drops that don't necessarily have that much access to ammo crates, but right now it's busted. And one of the biggest changes, which I'm really looking forward to seeing the effect of when we get to actual tournaments, is that the zones have completely changed. Previously there were 9 zones, now there is 12. Now, I thank my guy Kinch Analytics. He's done a full breakdown of this, and thank God, because I could not be bothered to do this. So the first 5 zones are all regular shrinking zones, and zones 6 to 8 are all partial zones that are always around the edge of the previous zone. And then after that, we have 4 moving zones similar to previously. This extends the game time by around a minute roughly. However, the end game is actually shorter. So now what we have is actually a significantly longer mid game, and it slightly nullifies the negative effects of having a far zone, because each zone you're not going to have to travel as far. That is theoretically, but also what I foresee happening here is the fact that the edges of these zones are going to become extremely congested with players repeatedly rotating late, which does advantage the players that go to the center of zone early. You can also see the storm surge thresholds on screen right now, but I'm going to do a full video on this later on in the season once we've had a few tournaments. With the increased length of mid game, there's now more to do though, because there's 3 different mid game objectives. The first one is the vaults that you may have seen, located in Mega City, Brutal Bastion, and Shattered Slabs. Now you may ask, how are these a mid game objective if they're in drop spots? And that's because they don't actually spawn at the start of the game. High Card, who is the AI that spawns, who's the card, actually appears when the second zone appears. So that's roughly 5 minutes into the game, and you'll be able to see his marker on the map. So if he's still alive, you'll know he's there and you can rotate there. And of course, this happens in all 3 POIs every game. And this means that it's not only the players who drop in these specific POIs that are going to go to be able to get access to these vaults. It means that if you've looted an area around it, there's enough time for you to rotate into this drop spot and either fight for the vault or just try and hold the people that are actually going for it. And it's absolutely worth going for if you're near any of these 3 POIs. Firstly, knocking out High Card gives you a mythic AR, it'll give you the key card, it'll give you 2 heals, a bit of AR ammo, and 175 gold. So for re-rolling your reality augments or just picking up heals from vending machines, this is incredibly powerful. Once you actually get into the vault itself, there's a little bit of a difference in loot between the 3 vaults, but what you're looking at there is a mythic shotgun, which as we said before, does 250 damage to the head, and it's 1 per person. So what that means is in solos, you'll get 1, in duos, you'll get 2, and in trios, you're going to get 3. There's a bunch of chests, 2 of these rare chests, 1 normal chest, 5 slurp barrels, 3 ammo crates, a ton of gold, somewhere around 250 in Mega City when I checked, and most importantly, 2 of the Slurp Juice, remember what we talked about earlier, which heal 240 HP total. So these vaults are absolutely worth going for. When I did a little test just in Mega City, I had around 500 gold just from knocking out High Card and looting this. The other mid-game objective that you have that you've probably seen is Loot Island. Now this spawns at Storm Circle 4 when that just appears. So that's roughly 14 minutes into the game. Thanks to Fortnite GG, here is a map of all of the different spawn locations that it could possibly end up at, and I'm not entirely sure the logic of which one it chooses quite yet, but it's clear you are at a large advantage if you put yourself relatively close to the center of the map, because there's a lot more spawns in this area, which will give you a lot higher chance of it spawning near you. And like most of these other mid-game objectives, when it appears on zone at that 4th zone, it will also be shown on your map. If you notice that Capture the POI looks a little different as it's gold rather than the other ones which are silver, that's because the loot that you get from this is absolutely insane. An overclocked pulse rifle, which again, this is 1 per person, so if it's in duos you'll get 2, solos you'll get 1, a gold weapon, 2 slurp juice, some ammo, 3 heals, and 200 gold. Usually in the mid-game you wouldn't want to sacrifice your positioning to go and grab much loot, but I think the overclocked pulse rifle is a reason to do this. This weapon does 38 damage to the body when you're shooting from hip fire and 57 when you're ADSing. And to the head it does 57 when you're not scoped and 85 when you're scoped in. Just look how quickly it shreds this 200 HP player called Sub to Resub, by the way. Unbelievably broken. Capture the POI isn't the only thing that Loot Island has to offer. There's a vault which needs 2 keys to open. Now the loot in here is not anywhere as amazing, there's not mythic pumps, but there's obviously a ton of chests in here. But once this spawns, there's also 8 rifts underneath it. So not only can you use these to get on top of the island, you can use them to rotate in the mid game, but for competitive, players should always keep an eye on this area, as players will probably fly through the sky, and if you've got some good aim, they should be some easy eliminations for you. It seems like people are trying to do the same thing that Kami and Seti did at the Invitational, was they're staying in zone for a long time to grab this additional loot, and they're just using these rifts to rotate behind everyone in the zone. So yes, now that this only spawns in one particular location, you should easily be able to take advantage of this strategy if you can predict it ahead of time. The final mid-game objective, which I haven't actually been able to find in-game myself yet, is the Combat Cache. And the way I've heard that this works is essentially 2 teams, or 2 players, depending on if it's solos or duos or trios, whatever, will get notified that it's in your game, and then you have the ability to go and try and claim it like a Capture the POI. This will just give you a bunch of different loot. There's a ton of new mechanics in this game, and I have a bunch of videos planned already, so make sure you like and subscribe to keep notified for those in future.